You will not believe the shocking stories behind these wrestler grudges against The Undertaker. Stay tuned to uncover the bitter feuds. For over 30 years, The Undertaker was a staple of WWE, racking up championships, marquee matches, and a near mythological streak of 21 wins in a row at the grandest stage of them all, WrestleMania. From 1990 until his retirement in 2020, The Undertaker faced some bona fide legends, including the likes of Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, Steve Austin, The Rock, John Cena, The Great Khali, Giant Gonzalez, Heidenreich, and Randy Orton, to name but a few. Bona fide legends as they all are, and deserving their place in the Hall of Fame. He served WWE throughout the highs and lows of the Monday Night Wars, with WCW as Mean Mark Callis. He was there for a cup of coffee, but he joined WWE and then stayed and refused to leave ever. This loyalty to WWE, and more specifically to Vince McMahon, earned him the rank of locker room leader throughout times of real life uncertainty around the promotion, and could easily be attributed to the continued success of the company throughout his tenure. As a result, The Undertaker and the man behind the character, Mark Calaway, rank among some of the most respected, revered and feared people in the industry. Even some of those who are now regarded as veterans have taken some form of inspiration or received tutelage from The Undertaker, a recent example being Damian Priest. However, it took a lot of time, turbulence and tribulations for the deadman to reap the rewards and the respect during his fruitful career. While Taker has plenty of admirers, there are always going to be some people who dislike you, and that's the same for the deadman. Calloway's journey saw him become the de facto locker room leader, a close friend and confidant of Vince McMahon Jr., and the judge of the infamous Wrestlers Court in WWE. If you've not heard of the Wrestlers Court, it's basically where WWE decided against having a HR system and just left the wrestlers to police themselves. These are guaranteed to rub some people the wrong way, so without further ado, let's take a look at the wrestlers who don't like the dead man. Welcome to Honor Wrestling Club, and in today's video we're looking at 9 wrestlers who hate The Undertaker. Welcome to the club. In number 9, we have Chris Kanyon. The tragic struggles that Chris Kanyon suffered both in his life and his wrestling career have been well documented. Famously chronicled in Vice's TV Dark Side of the Ring docuseries and his posthumous memoir co-authored by Ryan Page titled Wrestling Reality, The Life and Mind of Chris Kanyon. The former WWE and WCW star took his own life at just 40 years old in 2010 after struggling with his closeted homosexuality in a sport rooted in masculinity. Kanyon was said to have been tipped for big things in WWE following joining them in 2001. But events didn't transpire that way, as he was injured during a dark match in October that year. Struggling with depression and erratic behaviour, Kanyon would finally make his return to the company on February 13th, 2003 on an episode of SmackDown, and this was in an ill-fated segment with The Undertaker. Kanyon re-emerged from a large present gifted to Taker by The Big Show, dressed as iconic gay singer Boy George, with his own rendition of Culture Club's "Do You Really Wanna Hurt Me?" The segment ended with Taker beating Kanyon with audibly stiff chair shots, including one unprotected to the head, and he would be released by WWE a year later. In his memoir, he said that he believed the segment to be a joke about his sexuality. He also accused the company of releasing him because he was gay. The Undertaker has since addressed the Kanyon rumours, denying he was even aware of the fact that he was gay, while he did accept that the chair shots were dangerous. In number 8 we have Tracy Smothers. Former WWE, WCW and ECW wrestler Tracy Smothers had the unique position of working with Mark Calaway in Memphis before he became Menacing Michael's frightful disciple. The late veteran had been very vocal about the way the former Mean Mark had changed, going as far to say that he and Shawn Michaels had a hand in his and a number of other wrestlers' departures from WWE. Someone saying Shawn Michaels was unprofessional in the 90s. I will not stand for such boundless and faceless allegations against the little toe rag that he was back then. As Smothers would say in a 2018 interview with Hannibal TV, yeah, back then, I guess you take it personal, you do, especially when they screw you over. But I guess in that spot, guys think they've got to be paranoid. This wouldn't be the first person to suggest of a big thing of being paranoid backstage in WWE. But back to what Smothers has said, they've got to be in their spot, insecure, and they've got to stay to themselves, and do. But I've heard some of the stuff Undertaker's done, you know? He used to have a smile on his face all the time, but I guess in that spot, in that position, you know? They think everybody's against them, but him and Shawn, they got me out of there. And not just me, a lot of guys. Smothers recalled an incident backstage when an unnamed developmental wrestler and The Undertaker were having some sort of incident between them. It was some kind of meeting. Undertaker was there, something or whatever. His cell phone went off, and I guess Undertaker got really annoyed about it. I think he tried to make amends with him on something. He bought a really nice bourbon or something, but he got him fired. Which, if true, is not very nice from The Undertaker. In number 7, we have Paul London. Paul London worked in WWE throughout the 2000s alongside The Undertaker. London would be released in November 2008, after being buried for a year due to smiling during the Vince McMahon limo exploding incident. London has spoken extensively about his time in the company, and especially in the Brian Kendrick and Paul London's Excellent Adventures double DVD in 2010, during which he said that he would catch glimpses of the good of The Undertaker can do, but then there would be stuff that he would shake his head at, like being dragged out of a hotel room in the early hours of the day for Wrestlers Court. Undertaker acted as Judge Judy at 4 in the morning, he recalled, adding another swipe. I'm not a fan of people who put deadman on their license plate. I'm not a fan of people who wear their own merch. Both Kendrick and London said that people would act differently around The Undertaker backstage, with those thought to be friends turning and reporting back in an attempt to get ahead, a position The Undertaker seemed to relish. London has since expanded upon Undertaker's backstage presence during a 2023 interview with Wrestling Then and Now, iterating a sense of professional respect while remaining cognizant of the politics of the person. He's kind of like the Don Corleone of the locker room, he said. There's nobody more respected in the locker room than him, but you know, he's got his people, they'll do his bidding and try to teach people lessons, he'll keep his hands clean. A lot of people look at him like he was the locker room leader, but I looked more at the likes of Eddie Guerrero as like the locker room leader in my estimation. Taker was just kind of like, I guess everyone just kind of feared him, and with good reason, to be fair. I mean, you know, he's like 6'10", you know, weighs close to 300 pounds, he's very muscular, can lift people above his head with ease, so you know, I'd fear him. In number 6, we have Chris Jericho. AEW star Chris Jericho worked with The Undertaker several times in WWE before he would eventually depart the company in 2018. While Taker and Jericho shared plenty of matches over the year, with the Deadman even losing the World Heavyweight Championship to Jericho in one of the best Chamber matches ever in 2010. You can check out our ranking of the Elimination Chamber matches. It's actually one of the first videos we ever did, so be sure to go check that one out after this video. They never actually met each other in singles action on a WWE pay-per-view, and Jericho's recollection of a promo that he cut in 1999 maybe lent some insight as to why that was. I did a promo on The Undertaker, he started talking during his Talk Is Jericho podcast series. The idea at the time was I was just going to bury all the top stars and tell them how boring they were. I told The Undertaker how boring he was after he just lived a 10-minute, super boring promo. I got so much heat for that, I remember Shawn Michaels said, "Word of advice, kid. Something you might not want to do on the second night in the company is tell the top star in the company how boring he is." Jericho conceded that Michaels might have been right in his part, but he also felt that he hadn't been wrong in saying the Taker was boring. He said that he felt he hit the nail right on the head, recounting the dead man's own promo he cut towards the Big Show the night before. He spoke of Taker's response, saying, "He gave me the line of, 'I've had more shower time than you've had ring time,' and said, while it may have been funny, it wasn't entirely inaccurate." Jericho was 9 years into his career at this point, compared to Undertaker's 13 years in wrestling at the time. For his part, Jericho's animus towards Undertaker appears to have mostly levied towards the character of The Undertaker, as opposed to Mark Calloway, the man behind the makeup. In 2010, Jericho was effusive in his praise for Taker at his 30th anniversary celebration. In number 5, we have Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan having beef with someone? I can't believe it. The Undertaker defeated Hulk Hogan to capture his first WWE Championship reign at Survivor Series 1991, just over a year after his debut, only to drop the belt back 6 days later this Tuesday in Texas. The Undertaker himself addressed the situation with ESPN in 2020. recalling that Hogan had made some untruthful claims about being hurt by his tombstone piledriver. Hogan claims, "I hurt him on the tombstone during the pay-per-view. He started, I kind of figured maybe it's because he's telling everybody that I hurt him. Hulk was still the golden goose at the time, so I'm thinking they're going to take this off with me because they can't trust me or whatnot. I really wasn't explaining to me what the reasoning was behind it." This whole kerfuffle over the title here, to be fair, led to the 1992 Royal Rumble match, which is excellent, but still. Taker said he was devastated, but recognised it was a setup from the get-go. Undertaker emphasises that he had held Hogan securely for the finish, with the Hulkster claim that he had injured his neck, going as far as to tell the medics to call his family. Upon reviewing the spot, Taker noticed that Hogan had not made contact with the mat, and knowing it would come at the detriment of his career, he confronted Hogan on his claims. If you do decide to go back and re-watch this one, firstly, good luck, it's very boring. And secondly, you could drive a bloody freight train between the gap between Hogan's head and the steel chair Ric Flair's holding on the mat. Hogan, though, to Taker's confrontation, was like, "Well, brother, what it was, you had me so tight that when we came down, I had nowhere to move, and that's what jammed my neck, brother, because I couldn't move at all, brother." At that point, when I was like, "Okay, I know what you're all about, and that's all I needed to know. Rest in peace." Taker reiterated that they maintained a professional relationship for the time they shared the locker room, which granted wasn't long at all as Hogan would be gone by the next year, but there was no personal connection beyond that moment. It can be reasoned that Hogan felt a degree of backstage competition with the at the time burgeoning star. And number 4, we have Joey Janella. Since retiring from the ring in 2020, The Undertaker has given several interviews and started his own podcast, 6 Feet Under with Mark Calloway, which is quite a listen to be fair, providing commentary on contemporary wrestling as well as recalling the days of yore. One contemporary wrestler to have subsequently taken issue with Taker's more controversial remarks has been former All Elite Wrestling star Joey Janella, who's been several degrees of shade towards the WWE Hall of Fame on social media. In 2021, Janella took to X/Twitter platform and riffed on remarks made by the Deadman about video games being played in the locker room, writing, "I'm going to buy a PlayStation 5 and immediately bury it in the dirt to show my allegiance to the BSK and legends of locker room past." I don't know when Joey Janella joined the Knights of the Round Table, but we'll go with it. Janella would continue in that vein in 2022, responding to Taker's comment that today's wrestlers lack the grit of before. Janella wrote, "I 100% agree, Mark. Lots of lame Marvel geek talk in these locker rooms. If I ever open up a wrestling school before you have your first match, you're gonna have to get in at least 2 bar fights with proof. By the by, Avengers movies suck." Janella would further bring The Undertaker into the circle of online debate in April of last year, albeit more to demonstrate a double standard, as he asked what the difference was between Commander's divisive rope walk signature compared to The Undertaker's staple old school. Janella later revealed that former AEW colleague and now WWE champion Cody Rhodes reached out to reprimand him for the comments towards The Undertaker, but he assured the American Nightmare that he was just keeping it jovial for a reaction. For his part, Janella has mostly used Undertaker as a device for arguing against the double standard, and specifically clapped back at the Deadman's stance on the wrestling pool he belongs to. In number 3, we have Doug Gilbert. Doug Gilbert? I've never heard that name in my life. Anyway, Doug Gilbert's one and only WWE pay-per-view appearance came during the Royal Rumble in 1996, headlined by Bret Hart defending his WWE Championship against The Undertaker. Gilbert and The Undertaker had worked for the Memphis-based United States Wrestling Association together before the latter moved on. The story, as Gilbert told in a compilation about The Undertaker by Title Match Wrestling, is that before he became the Deadman of WWE, Mark Calloway hitched rides with him as he couldn't afford new tyres. "I carried Mark around. Mark rode with me, The Undertaker, when he was in Memphis, and we hung out together. We made trips, 4 days a week together, and we'd ride in my car because he didn't have enough money to put tyres on his car," he said. On January 3rd, 1996, Gilbert would win a Battle Royal and earn himself a spot in the Royal Rumble match later that month. Gilbert said that considering they rode together before, he assumed he would have some form of friendly reunion with Calloway, where he was met with a gruff and dismissive reply, which Gilbert responded with, potentially due to Undertaker feeling like he didn't belong in the Rumble match. "But now here's a guy that I was in Memphis with that didn't have enough money to put tyres on his car. that was driving around in an escort with bald tyres, that rode with me every single night. He couldn't. It's all about, what have you done for me lately, I guess. He sure didn't remember that he didn't have enough money to get to the towns without me. Gilbert recalled further, trying to provoke conversation with Taker. I said, "You doing okay, Mark?" He said, "Yeah." I thought, man, F you. So it's fair to say that we have no lost love for each other. In number 2, we have loose cannon Brian Pillman. Brian Pillman, for those of you who are unaware of him, was one of the most exciting wrestlers around until his untimely death in 1997. But he found himself at odds with the Deadman throughout their runs in WCW and later in WWE. When he signed with the promotion, Pillman was just the second wrestler in WWE to have received a guaranteed contract following Mark Henry, and The Undertaker was amongst those to take issues with the upward trend of deals of this ilk being handed out to new starters. Pillman's side of things was covered posthumously in 2017 book Crazy Like a Fox, the definitive chronicles of Brian Pillman, with it written that the pair had exchanged words following a match at WCW's Clash of Champions, and hadn't shared any positive regard for one another following that. The book further notes that Pillman's outgoing personality rubbed Undertaker the wrong way and vice versa. With Pillman's credibility as a street fighter and NFL alumnus, he saw a vast contradiction in Undertaker, who Pillman deemed a fake biker. Brian saw him as a man without any reputation as a credible fighter, but still carried himself as if he should be feared. In many ways, Pillman thought that Cowley was a phony. The final assessment reads, Pillman didn't have long to make an impact in WWE, dying from a heart attack on October 5th, 1997, the day of the Bad Blood pay-per-view that year. Just over a year following him signing with the company, which is a damn shame, as we said, he was one of the most exciting wrestlers going, and really would have come to life in the Attitude Era. As a result, there was never a chance for he and Undertaker to go through their issues and possibly become friends. In number 1, we have Renee Dupri. Renee Dupri spent time with WWE throughout the 2000s, and he has since been open about his time with the company. One particular story he has told speaks to the wider role Undertaker had as a judge of the Wrestlers' Court, a system of peer assessment and reprimanded in a less official capacity, one which others have simply called hazing. Dupri recalled a time where he had upset the bounce backstage during that 90s wrestling podcast with the Sun. Okay, Dupri was a French wrestler, so I'm going to try and speak this with a French accent. I don't know if he's officially from France, but he played a French gimmick, so close enough. They took my $500 shoes and $1,000 suit and ruined it in the shower because I didn't go out drinking at the bar the night before because nobody invited me, he said. I'm not going to be able to keep that up, I'm just going to read it normally. That's just materialistic S-word. You can replace that. That doesn't bother me. What really bothered me is when in Italy the next night they took my French flag, my heritage, they shoved it in a toilet and pooped all over it. He continued, I don't know what BS world you live in, but in my world that's called racial discrimination, and that was really hurtful. Dupri said that he first went to Arn Anderson, who advised him not to sell it, and then he went to Undertaker. He surmised after a conversation between them that he had been Taker behind the whole thing because he had declined to go out with them the night before. Dupri left WWE at his own request on July 26, 2007. And there you have it, there's our video. So, Honor Wrestling Club fans, thanks for sticking around until the end of this video. If you enjoyed what you've seen, smash that like button and let us know in the comments down below your thoughts on these wrestlers hating The Undertaker. And based on these stories, what would you say your opinions lie on The Undertaker? Your feedback does mean the world to us. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell to never miss out on a new video. Share this with your friends and fellow wrestling enthusiasts. Let's grow the Honor Wrestling Club community together. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Stay awesome, and welcome to the club.